Hey, it's your buddy Peace and Harmony with you here today. Focusing in on the shame-based experience that is encouraged or really developed, created when one is in a relationship with a narcissist or psychopathic abuser. In the book by John Bradshaw, Healing the Shame That Binds, he discusses the fact that in abusive relationships, that shame is considered the master emotion. Shame is considered the sense or experience that one is inherently flawed and that one is then bringing this sort of feeling and experience into all other relationships and really becomes an identity within the person that is experiencing a shame-based relationship. And shame-based relationship essentially is when someone is reflecting to you that something is inherently wrong. Something about you is not right. And it is reflected back to you that you are not worthy, you're flawed, something is wrong with you, you're crazy, you're not working hard enough, you're not good enough, you're not living up to my perfectionist standards, you're a disappointment, there's something wrong with you, we're going to accept just this conditional only one part of you, we're not going to accept you as a whole. And these are the sort of experiences, this is the sort of identity that is reflected back, or what John Bradshaw calls mirroring back to the other quote-unquote supply, the target, the individual who is being victimized, or basically the object of supply in the relationship. So remember that in the narcissist relationship, they're going to do whatever it is at all costs to keep themselves above and you below, to keep them the master controller and you controlled underneath. And this does also to maintain this relationship dynamic of control. One must, subjugate to their power, and in essence, really sort of identify with them as more important or more significant or having authority over you. And when we talk about this reflection, this positioning of the narcissist in a relationship with a supply or targeted individual, someone who is there to serve as a supply source, a sort of propping up of them in to create that sort of ego, high ego placement that they have, that status in the relationship, the power in the relationship. Realize that they position themselves through this mirroring. And it's very important to become aware of narcissistic mirroring in relationships. And I very much I find it very akin to that of an alcoholic. And we find that oftentimes when there are alcoholic parents, they're out of control, chaotic, violent, talking in slurred speech, irrational, acting out of control, creating a lot of neuroses, hiding of alcohol, things of this nature. So as you can imagine, an intoxicated parent would have a flawed, erroneous, inaccurate mirroring back of that child in the family. And of course, then, how they internalize their feelings, which is the creation of an identity. In essence, and John Bradshaw goes into this very much in depth in his book, Healing the Shame That Binds. But you can imagine that the alcoholic parent and how they reflect back the position of that child in the family, that slurred speech, that inaccurate mirroring of that child's needs, interests, wishes, desires, everything that is involved and impacts all areas of that child's life. As you can see, an alcoholic would have an erroneous, distorted mirroring back of that child's reality. It's very much parallel or very much akin to the reality that is reflected back from a narcissist into a supply, a target, a victim. We're using all these labels, but I want you to understand that we're talking about people here and not to get stuck on a label. I'm not a victim. I'm not a supply. I'm not, a lesser than individual. These are all terminology that we're using to understand the relationship dynamics. But I really want you to understand as you watch these videos that you are not supply, you are not a victim, you are not an underling, you are not an inferior being. These are all labels that have been reflected back to you at the mind and mindset, attitude, and approach of a narcissistic, pathological, psychopathic individual, which is really, in essence, they are I'm going to use the word psychotic in nature, meaning it has nothing to do with reality. Not that they're having a break from reality, but meaning it has nothing to do with reality. It's based on their character disordered mindset. So as we say, people say, oh, that's just the alcohol talking. It has nothing to do with truth. They were intoxicated. They had lost their inhibitions. It was the alcohol talking. I want you to begin to understand that there's a little bit of parallel, in fact, very, very significant parallel between a narcissist or a psychopath and what I'm going to call, if you can begin to realize that this mirroring back of you as inferior, disappointing them, not living up to their standards, these sort of narctels where they love bomb you, where they devalue and discard you, all throughout that cycle is really the narcissist talking. It's the alcohol talking. It's the psychopath talking. So if you can begin to see that this is not a healthy individual who is reflecting back to you healthy emotions, genuine emotions, your true, validating your true emotional being, your true identity, your true feelings, that is coming from a narcissist who's under, the control of a narcissist mindset, a psychopathic mindset. So when you hear this love bombing, as you, really heal through the relationship, realize where this had all been coming from, and that it is much an addiction as an alcohol addiction. So when you're addicted, to these people, very much realize that they create this sort of toxicity and then this addiction to them, and really this heightened sense of importance of them in your life. And it is because the narcissist has created this position within your mindset. They have very much used neuro-linguistic programming and just position themselves by the things that they say to give themselves, unwarranted, really, authority over you. So learn to realize and identify this and how it has worked in your relationship, and realize, learn to identify, when is the alcohol speaking? When is the narcissist speaking? When is the psychopath speaking? When is this character disordered having an incoherent sort of mirroring back to you of your values, your self-worth, your self-esteem, and realize that they have used this to shame you, which is really a master emotion, and does tend to create a feeling of being less than or inherently flawed. And realize that this has nothing to do with reality, and realize that this is essentially the narcissist speaking, the psychopath speaking, and let it go. Realize that the mirroring was distorted, and get yourself into more of a realistic sense of an experience of yourself, where it's not based on conditional love, the reflection of this narcissist. Begin to really embrace your freedom, your own self-esteem as independent and self-dependent, and not dependent on the erroneous, distorted reflection of a narcissist or psychopathic abuser. Peace and harmony with you here today. I hope these videos do help. Please share and please subscribe for more great tools, videos, discussion, and support.